like to start with your work on early Chinese mysticism. Um, from my understanding is it really shows that the mystical experience is the foundation of early Taoist, at least the texts, if not the practices. And I assume one led to the other. The practices were important, so they wrote the text. How do we define mysticism in Taoism? And was this kind of a practice of the, I think of mysticism as an individual experience and cultivation versus a dogmatic religious one, which is more people talking at you and you just trying to intellectually understand.
Well, mystical experience in the most general way can be described as an experience of the dissolution of your ordinary awareness, letting go of your personal concerns, of your ego patterns, of your emotions, and to flow into or merge with or be taken over or integrate with a higher power. And in theistic traditions, which means the Western religions and also India, that higher power is usually imagined as a personalized figure, and so you're becoming one with God, or you're joining Jesus, or you're merging in ecstasy with Rama or Krishna or something. In the Taoist tradition, in the early stages where we don't have a lot of theistic components, the key figure is the Tao, and so you're merging with a force, a universal energy, a core creative power, a flow. And so they call it the great thoroughfare, the Da Tong in the Chuangzi. And so, yes, it's an individual experience. And as William James, who is the one who did the most academic work and laid the foundation of our theoretical understanding of mysticism, he talks about mystical experience happening to people. It's not something that you can program yourself for and predict. So it's not like, if you're eating certain things, well, your stomach will feel full. So there's not a linear relationship between practice and experience. However, you can make yourself experience prone. So
Mm.
cultivation practices, meditations, also things like fasting, some semi-shamanic techniques such as drumming, will allow ordinary concerns to fade or to be less, and will set the system, both body and mind, up for something like this kind of experience. But the experience happens. It's not something you can plan.
So it seems like the requisite is dropping the ego and surrendering to something greater, the Tao
Yes,
in this
that's a
case.
very good way of yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. Yes.
It's like with enlightenment, there's instant enlightenment and there's takes a long time to get enlightenment, and some people are kind of in the middle, and it's same thing with feeling chi in the body. Some people can feel it running through the channels, others can't feel it at all. And it's like, well, there's always your next lifetime, don't worry.
Right.
So you saying that we just need to prepare our mind and body and set it in a way that is open to receiving this experience or have it
That's
occur.
correct.
That
Yeah.
doing these practices doesn't necessarily create the experience or make it happen itself.
Correct. That's
Hmm.
correct.
That's interesting. I think that clarification would help a lot of people be more patient in their practice
Yes,
and not give
and
up.
it's also the other thing that people tend to think, and that comes from the Christian tradition, where you have, like Hildegard of Bingen and Saint Ignatius and the cloud of unknowing, and the Christian tradition has this really big deal about, oh, I mean, I'm floating away and I'm like one with God, and I'm like, it's so overwhelming and it's beyond anything, and oh my God, it's just phenomenal. See, in the Taoist tradition, and also in some of the more recent psychological kind of approaches, it's more like something that occurs fairly regularly. It's more like a momentarily, a moment of really being 100% where you are, of appreciating whatever is around you, whether it's nature, other people, or you're listening to a piece of music. And so it's not this total transcendent otherness, but it's something that's part of your life already. You just need to sort of shift. It's the what's it called? A Course in Miracles says
Mhm.
that, where it says enlightenment is not something totally different. It's just a minor shift. So it's allowing yourself to be present. And then the moment you're really present, you can feel how, the trees have their energy and you connect to that, or how music flows through you, or how you're just floating in the space. And it can be very short, but it's there, and it's something that nurtures human psyche and human spirituality. Um, so, one of the things that I've done in these books that you were mentioning is shift the definition of mysticism away from this mega overwhelming total otherness kind of experience, which is a very Christian, Western, also Islamic kind of tendency, towards something that's more accessible, because the Tao is here all the time. It's everywhere. We're part of it, and we just have to take a deep breath and relax into it, and there it is.
Right.
um, and I've connected, also in the book you've read, to Abraham Maslow's peak experiences. And peak experiences happen constantly to people. You're listening to a symphony, you're out in nature, you're on a beach, you're playing with your dog, and you just have this, oh my God, this is great, kind of feeling, and you have this sense of wholeness. And the more you can nurture that, it's really not a matter of nurturing, it's a matter of being open to it, because it's already there.
I think in realizing that you're having or you're experiencing an altered state of consciousness on some level,
Yes,
and
yes,
just recognizing that is happening
yes,
is a big part of most people. Like I think a lot of people in sports and
yes.
performers
They
on
get into
stage,
the zone,
the
what they call the
zone,
zone. Yes,
right?
that's exactly right. That's a peak experience.
That's a
Yes,
peak experience. And in martial arts and in meditation, or if you're
yeah. Or
performing
people are playing music,
music on
yeah,
stage, they get
yeah,
into this where everything else is
exactly.
quiet, everything is
Yes,
slow, and
yes.
this altered state of consciousness is a meditative state. To me, that's
Yes,
also a mystical
exactly.
experience
Yes.
because
And
you're
that's what
one
I,
with this,
yes,
you're one with the music, or
yes,
you're one with the activity for that brief
yes,
moment, a 3 minute piece of music
exactly.
or 30
Yes,
seconds running
yes,
down
yes, yes.
the field.
And then the thing is that once you've got to the point where you're opening to this kind of thing and say, okay, you know what? It's not that big a deal. I can just experience this. I can just have this. Then it happens more often. And
Yeah,
then it happens in ordinary life. I mean, you're putting your hands in warm water to do the dishes, and it's like, whoa. So which is what Thich Nhat Hanh talks about,
right.
the miracle of mindfulness. I mean, he goes at it from this mindfulness perspective, where you're calming your thought, you're calming your emotion, and you focus your full attention on whatever it is that's here, and the orange in front of you becomes this miracle, and then you're merging with the orange as you're peeling and eating it, and it becomes this whole different dimension of living. And you
Right.
can do that. It's not something that's way out there. It takes taking a break, and taking a little bit of a step back and allowing for it to happen.
Hmm. Yes. How did you think that? So for the Taoist, the origin of the cosmos is the Tao. The Tao
Hmm.
is the is the, I'm going to say mechanism, maybe it's the wrong word, of a mystical experience, right? Unfolding within you. How did, if that's correct, how did early Taoists come to this idea? Was it just through observing nature, or does early Taoism come out of a shamanism, or was it an early Chinese shamanic practice that kind of developed over the centuries to this understanding of the Tao rather than a god, or or Brahma or something else? Is because certainly
Um,
they're similar.
yeah, there's some um, historically the dynasty, the Taoists developed under the Zhou dynasty, the
Mm,
Eastern Zhou. And then before that, they had a dynasty called the Shang dynasty, which ended in about 1100 BC. And the Shang people had a very heavy duty pantheon of gods and ancestors, and it was fairly theistic. And they had practices where they would contact the ancestors to get divination, to get advice, to get ideas of what they should be doing. And there's debate on how shamanistic that kind of system was. But there is a shamanic practices are also there,
mhm,
if not at the court, then in the country. So you do have deities, you do have nature spirits, you do have this connection, but then when the Zhou dynasty takes over, they're shifting away from this ancestor and deity dominated cosmos to something they call heaven. So
mm,
Tian, heaven, is the leading deity in the Zhou dynasty, and it's not a god, it's a force. And
nice.
so you start getting this idea of a force as the core power, and human actions and attitudes can influence how positive or benevolent or supportive the force is. Or if they're doing the wrong thing, then the force gets turned around and starts lashing out, creating disasters and whatever. And so Taoism grows from this Zhou dynasty understanding. It's already by the time Lord Lao Tzu comes around in the 5th, 500, 6th century. The Zhou dynasty has been in power for 500 years. So we're looking at something that's extremely well established. And then the idea of Tao at the time is like the heaven produces patterns of action. It's a dynamic concept. It means the way of doing things. And so, under this whole, the auspices of this understanding of heaven as the force that sort of governs and manages and rules and regulates everything, um, you have multiple Tao, multiple ways. You have the way of singing, and the way of governing, and the way of playing an instrument, and the way of eating, and the way of whatnot. So every little thing has its own way, but it's connected to under the umbrella of this heaven that as a force regulates it. And so we have Tao in every which modality by the time Lao Tzu comes along. And then the Taoists take that and they're essentially equating Tao with heaven.
Mm,
And so Tao becomes a cosmological force in the Tao Te Ching. And that's the first time that happens. Before
right.
that, the word is just like it's a technique, it's a way of doing things. So carpenter has his Tao, and cook has his Tao, and a writer has his Tao, and there's multiple Taos. And in the Tao Te Ching, they say, no, 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 Tao is the cosmic force, and it's very close to heaven. So it's like, humanity follows earth, earth follows heaven, heaven follows Tao. They
Mm,
subsume heaven under Tao. So they're creating an alternative cosmology which integrates the whole idea of heaven, but moves it into Tao.
interesting. So the Tao Te Ching at that time was probably not seen as a philosophical text like it is for most Westerners who
That's
are
right.
looking at Taoism. It would seem to me that it was seen as its high spiritual text or religious text, so
Well,
to
the Tao
speak.
Te Ching at this time didn't exist in this format. It didn't
Right.
get put together in this format for another couple of hundred years. Um, but it existed in rudimentary forms, and it was various sayings,
Mm,
sayings that create a kind of it's not philosophical in the sense that it's detached from reality, but it's cosmological and philosophical in the sense that it describes universal principles, but it comes out of application, and it's a political text. It is addressed, a
mm,
lot of these sayings, a lot of these ideas are addressed to rulers, say, hey, there's no point raising another army and destroying the whole country. It is much better to be laid back and let the people do their job.
right. Right. Oh my goodness. In some of your writing, you emphasize a shift from the constructed self to the original self, and from there to returning the goal of returning to the source. What does this mean, and how does this come about?
The ancient texts in the Daoist tradition, or even today, there's two words for self. One is called a ji, and the word ji is it's like a weaving term. It's like it looks like something where it's like a pattern thing,
Hmm.
and it's something that you're creating consciously and that you're creating as a pattern in the outside world, and that's what we call the constructed self. Modern psychologists also call it the object self.
Hmm.
It's like you're learning that certain behaviors are good and others are not acceptable, and you're learning, what your body is like and what you look like and what your clothes are like and what you should be doing in certain situations, and you create this concept of self. It's a constructed social, and it's necessary. People have to have a sense of identity to function
Right.
in the world. But then the other kind of self, which is the word zi, and the combination ziji is the modern word for self. The word zi is goes back to a pictogram that is the image of your nose. And your nose is something that you have, but you don't see it. It's not something you can manipulate. It's not outside of yourself, it's inside of yourself. And interestingly enough, all over East Asia, when people take their hands to point at themselves, say, oh, you mean me? They point at their noses. We point at our chest.
Right. Right. Right.
But they
That's
point at
funny.
their noses. And so the zi kind of thing is your natural self. So it's not constructed. It's something that is natural to you. And the word zi also means spontaneous and the way things are, so natural, spontaneous. And what happens is that people, as they're born with that spontaneous inner kind of self that wants to develop and it wants to realize itself in the course of a lifetime, but then the socially constructed self often puts restrictions on it. So it's like, oh yes, I really would like to be a painter, but I have to go out and make money, and so I have to drive an Uber car, whatever. you know so things like that. And so you end up with this kind of tension between the two. And part of the cultivation in the Taoist tradition is to strip away the limitations and restrictions of the constructed self and let the natural self come to the fore and be more who you were originally meant to be. And the argument also is that the Tao, which arranges the entire universe, has given you particular gifts and particular inclinations that will allow you to function in society and make a living and be successful. So if you have the urgency to be a painter, then you need to get training to be good at it. You can't just be, a spontaneous fool around kind of person. Training is necessary. But you allow that inner self to really come forth, and you make the constructed self be the servant to your natural self. That's the ideal.
Mm.
And especially the Zhuangzi is very big on this. I've written several books on Zhuangzi. I got a translation of the text, the selection was commentary, which is very nice. And the real core teaching of Zhuangzi is, just strip away all this outside stuff and just be who you are naturally. And then things will start to fall into place. The universe will start to support you. The right teachers will appear, the right materials will appear, there will be support on the material basis. It's there. It's just you have to have the courage to do that. And then as you're doing that, you're going back to the source, which is the Tao. So you're becoming the Tao has your own personal path. It's like your personal Tao is an aspect of the greater cosmic Tao. And so the more you follow your own path, the more the energies of the cosmos will align to support that.
Interesting. It made me think about Jung's idea of the persona of
Yes,
and if we drop the persona and instead just be the authenticity of who we are, especially in public, that we're now moving closer in the flow of the Tao,
exactly.
maybe,
And
right?
authenticity is a big deal. There's a
Right.
book I edited called Living Authentically, which is a discussion or a selection of articles on Daoism and psychology. And it's very the word Zhen, which is a key term in the ancient Taoist tradition, means genuine, true, real, and a really good translation is authentic. For as far as the person, and the Zhenren is like the true person, the genuine person, the authentic, the person who have reached a level where they live in a very authentic kind of way. Yeah.
Interesting. Would practices like mind fasting and forgetful sitting help produce this or
Yes,
bring forth their
absolutely.
authenticity?
Absolutely.
Could
Yes,
you
yes,
describe those practices?
yes. Well, mind fasting in the Zhuangzi is like, we call it sensory withdrawal, where you sit quietly and you focus on your breathing. And if it's hard to do that, you can use a number or a word to get focus, and all the different senses gradually fall away. You're not, even though there may be a sound out there, you don't really hear it, or if you hear it, you don't pay attention to it. And your eyes are closed, so sights are not relevant, and you start to sort of ease into it. You need to be very comfortable so you're not distracted by aches and pains,
Hmm.
but you want the various senses to just go be muted. Essentially you're muting your senses, and then you can just be who you are, and that helps. And then visions will show up and ideas will come up, and you'll realize certain things that are going on in your life. Solutions will appear, and you're opening yourself to this stream. The text itself says that you shouldn't, they talk about listening. You should stop listening with your ears, and you should start to listen with your mind and heart. And then you should get over that and no longer listen even with the mind and heart, but just let the chi, the vital energy, just be your main medium. And the state that you reach is one of emptiness.
Mhm.
And sitting in oblivion is very similar. You're doing away with any kind of conceptualization. You're doing away with the idea of your body. You're doing away with whatever patterns there are. It's a more, the description is more about body and mind rather than the senses, but the idea is the same.
Would quiet sitting be similar to forgetful?
Quiet sitting is another way of talking about it. The Tao Te Ching
Mhm.
talks about quiet sitting. Um, Again, there's different texts that talk about slightly differently. Some say you should focus as you're breathing on your abdomen, how you're breathing abdominally, how your abdomen falls and opens and expands and contracts as you're breathing. Some talk about focusing on an object, and so it's. But the basic idea is to find stillness within and let all the other extraneous things fall away.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you for that. Taoist thought, I found this interesting in your writing. See if I have it right, that ethical behavior seems to flow naturally from mystical realization rather than social mores.
Right.
Uh, and, how does that perspective challenge ethical frameworks in our modern times? I mean, just so are you saying that being in flow with the Tao will make you react ethically because the Tao is the energy that creates everything, and you don't want to be on the wrong,
Yeah.
the wrong
That's
side of the
essentially what
Tao,
I'm saying. Yes. Yes.
right?
That's
So that,
essentially what I'm saying. But in any kind of, there's a bazillion rules in the Taoist tradition. Not as many in the early texts, but many, many in later centuries. And there's no real contradiction. I mean, people who are in flow with Tao, they will naturally do the right thing, and they don't really need the rules and regulations. But most people are not, and they need rules and regulations. Rules and
right,
regulations are a way of creating a safe framework within which to live, so that you don't overstep boundaries and get on the wrong side of things. You don't want your chi to flow the wrong way. You
right.
need to keep it moving smoothly. And ethical behavior is one way of keeping chi in good shape.
I would think it dawns on me that the Taoist method is almost looking at this uh, selfishly in a good way from, if I stay in this flow of the Tao and don't act unethically, I can live a happier life, a healthier life, a better life. Things will come to me that I need to achieve the goals that I'm interested in. And with our modern idea of morals and ethics, it's the opposite. It's like, not for my benefit to achieve things, but if I do wrong to somebody, I'm going to go to jail or get punished. It's looking at it almost from the opposite end of that spectrum between this is good for me and this is keeping me out of trouble, whether it's an argument or getting fired from a job or going to prison.
Right.
Pretty interesting.
There, there
Yeah.
are different approaches to ethics. In philosophy, ethics is a major branch of the study
Yeah.
of philosophy, and we talk about ethics of punishment, which are, limitation ethics, and ethics of control, versus what the Taoists are doing, which is virtue ethics, which supports good parts.
Yeah.
And so, the Western culture, or a lot of, not just Western, but a lot of traditional societies tend to be on the side of punishment, the
Right.
reward kind of. You scare people into behaving properly rather than nurturing their internal virtue. So,
Right. That's true. That's true. I know in Chinese medicine, and in the Yellow Emperor's Classic, it talked about qi moving through the meridian channels in 2 hour times, lung to large intestine, stomach, spleen, etc., in order. And in taming the mind, taming time, excuse me, you explored the ideas of time being cyclical, elastic, intertwined with qi, and uh, there's there's so many. The different chapters in taming time just like blew my mind, because each one is a different massive discussion on the framework of time and what it means and how it flows. And when we're even talking about, like, you know projecting forward and thinking about things in the future and how that's part of this makeup. What drew your interest into studying time, and how much of this time, I don't even know what to call it, complex, is entwined within Taoism or the different Taoist schools?
Well, the whole book is about exploring different dimensions of time in the Taoist tradition. So I mean, you can't get away from time. So every tradition and every person and everything on the planet is in some way related to time. And so all the different Taoist schools and practices and ideas have a close relationship to time. And I was using the theory of Julius Fraser, who, after many years of and very exhaustive studies of time, came up with six different types or modes or levels of time. The most original and fundamental being what he calls timelessness, which is like no time. It's at the beginning, before the Great Bang, beginning of the universe. It's even, just about like the Taoists would call it Wuji, like the
Mm.
being free from any kind of structure or organization, total chaos, openness. And then there's it's proto-temporality, which is like a quantum physics type, early pure energies flying around, but moving in different ways, very cosmic. And then the third one is the stars, the planetary time, which where the stars are created and come together, and then at some point they hang out for many millions of years, and then they disintegrate. Um, so once you get to the stars, you start to see um, a rising and decaying, or like you start having a cycle of entropy, but you don't really have birth and death yet. And then from there you have biological time, which is for the first time when you have birth and death, and it's animals and human beings, and there's cycles that are, it's both linear and cyclical. It's linear in that beings are born and then go through their process of life and then decline and eventually die. But it's also cyclical in that, like, day and night are rotating, and you have monthly changes, like the moon cycle, and you have annual cycles. And so there's the whole biological thing, which where a lot of Taoist cultivation clicks into the biological stuff.
Mm.
But Taoists are also really big on stars, and connecting to the stars and the cycles of the stars is a big deal. And then from there you have no temporality, which means mind time. And when you were talking about the future and having imagination of what might happen and dream, that's a form of time in your mind as you're mentally constructing time.
Mm.
And there the urgency is to do away with past and present, and really past and future, and really focus on the present. So the past is all memory. Memory is like a way of structuring time in your personal past. And then daydreaming and wishing and imagining things are way you're structuring future. And both of those are massively distracting. So when you're doing sitting in oblivion or mind fasting, you're not just getting rid of emotions, you're also getting rid of past and future. So you really want to be in the present. And then the present connects to things like the pure experience in Zen Buddhism, and all kinds of immediacy ideas and things like this. And then the very last one, and the one that's the most common and the one that's most widespread, is social time, sociotemporality, which is calendars and clocks and all,
Mm.
what's the right age to get married, and
Right.
like Social Security you now get at whatever 67, or all that kind of stuff. That's all socially determined time, which is entirely artificial and is very much disconnected from nature. And Taoists don't really like it at all.
But I have Taoist friends in Southeast Asia who make a cake for every Taoist deity on their birthday, and it's like every day they're making cake. So they like they like some of that
It's a good
cyclicalness.
excuse to make lots
They
of
can make a
cakes.
cake. Anytime to make a cake is good. I think of like if you're if you're having union with a mystical experience or a union where time slows. I mean, it changes our perception of time. We think about yogis who just spontaneously sit and go into samadhi for a week or 2 weeks, and they wake up and there's 10,000 people surrounding them in the middle of the street, bowing to them as a guru. And I can imagine that in their mind, that's 2 minutes. I've taken, naps or meditated where I felt like it's three minutes and it's been 2 hours. Um,
Mm.
it's it's like time stops when you're in
Yeah,
this
well, in the Fraser system, what they would say is that your consciousness is dipping into timelessness.
timelessness. Yeah.
So you're getting into this first stage of timelessness. And then any kind of divination, like when people use the I Ching or people use fortune telling or people look at omens or something like this, that dips into the proto-temporality of the quantum level.
Right.
And the thing is that all these six levels of time are there at all times. So we're constantly part of the whole thing. I mean, it's like whatever it is, 8:30 now on a Thursday, which is a social time, and we're trying to be mentally present. So that's our mental time, no temporality, and then we're biological. I just had breakfast. I mean, and then I have other
Right.
things scheduled, and so there's activities in the course of the day that match, the cycle of the sun and whatever. So you're connected to all these levels of time at all times, but there are moments, like you said, where you entering a different dimension of it. So you're connecting more and more intensely to timelessness when you enter a state like this, which and that's like social time. Social time calls it 2 hours, but what the
Right.
heck is 2 hours? I
We
mean,
made that
there's
up.
no
I mean,
reality to it if you really
right.
think about it. It's very scary. Like we're living in this
It is.
entirely artificial
We created
come
it.
on, AI that's already been around for like five, six, 700 years,
Yes.
artificial environment that has nothing to do with reality.
It's like some dark power decided to help us create a sundial and then a clock and now a world clock. And everybody in the
That's
entire
right.
world is set to doing things on these times because we're
That's right.
we're sheep,
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
herded.
Yeah.
The Tao better take care of that. We don't
Well, the
need it.
sundial isn't that bad because you're still really connected to the sun.
To the
It
sun,
gets
right?
it gets nasty once it's like the Benedictines started it in like the 10th or 11th century or something
Really?
where they started to have mechanical things that
Right,
would move and it's nothing to do with the sun anymore.
right.
And so now you get these things like daylight savings time, which is like
Like,
how artificial can you
and
get?
leap
I
years.
mean, it's like, oh, yeah.
Well, that also leads to the need for the light bulb, right? Because we're not waking up with the sun and going to bed or with the sun, and
That's right.
it's messing with our circadian rhythm, with
Yes,
messes
that's
with our
right.
connection with the Tao
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
cycle of the time, you know,
very much so.
sun and
Yes,
moon,
and
and
Taoist in the I'm not sure about nowadays, but in the 1930s and 40s, when people foreigners visited Taoist monasteries, in China, they would notice how there was no electricity and it's like in the winter you just sleep more. I mean, it gets dark, you just lie and it's cold, so you huddle under your blankets and then when you're not sleeping you're meditating. So but
right,
it's like your cycle, your daily rhythm is dictated by what's happening with the sun, so you're connecting to the planets
right.
rather than some artificial.
We were talking about uh, time and in meditation, letting go of the past and the future, so you're only in the now, which we should all seek to be. And I wonder about memories because I feel like memories are all fake. because they're not, I mean, they're not real. We remember things the way we remember them. Somebody else, the Rashomon effect, right? I mean, five
Mm,
people, the same, or in the
mm,
same room at the same time, and it's all a different memory of what happened, based on their experience, their life, and their. But a lot of memories, especially from childhood, that we hold on to, really affect ourselves psychologically. Our baggage, our programming from our parents and teachers, others around us, negative experiences, and we bring them forward. And sometimes the experiences weren't what we may have thought they were. And I wonder if these Taoist practices of kind of reframing memory or dissolving attachments to them could be helpful for people who suffer with things that they're holding on to, things from their past, for example, that is affecting their day to day negative things I'm
right.
speaking of. Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the idea is to eliminate that. It's and again, the memories that created, or let's put it this way, the experiences that created certain patterns in your psychological structures are part of your constructed self. And
Right.
so there are a number of different techniques. I mean, psychologists, I mean, psychotherapy, you go back and then you dig up all your
Deep breaths.
relationships and all that. And you're trying to release some of these, or if you can't release them, you can redefine them or restructure them. The Taoist tendency is to sort of just try and let them go. It's like, okay, well, that was then, this is now, kind of thing. And
Right.
so, does this serve me? And then, well, it has served me because obviously I adopted it at some point, even if it was a defense mechanism. But it doesn't, it's not necessary anymore. So I'm just making the decision to let it go. And then there's the thing is with the um, in the traditional system, you would have a teacher, a master, you would have fellow students, you would have guidance, you would have a supportive society. I mean, so you're not like in your own little corner trying to reorganize yourself. And
Right.
so, if you're wanting to reorganize your life with the help of Taoist practices, you should try and find a teacher, a community. Start with some basic Qigong practices that are being taught everywhere these days in senior centers and in gyms um, and then from there find a group and a teacher you like, and then move on to some others and say, oh, so and so is a really good teacher. Oh, well, let's try, and then you can maybe travel or watch their stuff on the computer. So and then that'll help.
Yeah.
The practices do help with whatever it is you're struggling with.
Hmm. Can one learn how to tame time? I mean, for whatever to whatever end, or to control time in some way, or is it just or is it more a matter of understanding the various natures of time and having that understanding through the Tao of how to flow through? You're saying that the daily cycles, the weekly, the monthly, the yearly, the solar cycles, the cycles are circadian rhythms. There's so many cycles of time, linear and
Yes, and
circular.
every organ in the body has its own.
Right.
It's not like they're all on the same page. It's like what your stomach wants now is not what your heart wants because they're on
Right.
a different time cycle.
Yeah.
um, the Taoists are, there's a couple of ways that you're taming time. One is, like you said in the meditations, you enter states of timelessness, and timelessness is a very powerful way of being, and it's accessible to us, and it opens this mystical experience. And Taoism is all about relating to the cosmos. And so by using the meditation methods and forgetting yourself and letting go of a lot of things, you can enter this kind of pure Tao state. And then moving on to the quantum type time, the proto-temporality. You use time to look for synchronicities, like the Jungian concept of synchronicity is a prototemporal phenomenon. A lot of people use the I Ching to help them understanding where's this pattern going in my life at this point? Is this the right time to apply for this next job? So you're utilizing the cosmos to help you with your decisions. So there's
Mm.
another way you're taming time. And then more on the biological level, there's a huge amount of literature, all these longevity techniques where you're really reversing entropy.
Right.
You know, the tradition, the pattern is that yes, we're getting older and the body's falling apart and things are, slowing down in metabolism. But hey, lo and behold, there's like this whole big pile of practices that will reverse all that.
Right.
And where you can be, biologically a certain number of years and mentally, spiritually, and even physically feel 20, 30 years younger than that.
Hmm.
So Taoists are very good at that, and there are many examples of Taiji masters who, are in their upper 90s and look like they're just about 60,
Right.
and hop around and are sprightly and yeah. So and those things, I mean, it take effort. You have to have a certain amount of dedication, and the dietary stuff comes into it. You can't. And then it's, I mean, the point comes like there was a story I don't know if you're familiar with Bill Porter, who
Oh,
wrote this book. What is it called? The Road
red
to
pine.
Heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who traveled to China to find all these hermits,
Yeah.
and he found
I
this
love that
woman
book.
who was in the back of beyond of one of the big mountains, and she was like, she was an immortal sitting or living in this walnut grove, and she would eat mostly walnuts, and she'd been living there for however many years. And so I'm teaching this to my students at Boston University, and one of them pipes up and said, "What's the point of living forever if all you can eat
Eat,
is
eat is,
walnuts?"
that's right. There's no point.
so so at some point, with the longevity techniques, you just have to make up your mind. Then
Right.
there's also, I taught a class on death and immortality, and we looked at some of these techniques. And there's one long life technique that's quite popular, which is calorie reduction. Like you're
Hmm.
eating extremely low calorie foods. And so we had a video on this about this guy who was essentially only eating broccoli and other kinds of vegetables. And he was living with his girlfriend, and the girlfriend had like pizza and lasagna and like really
Decadence.
fun
Yeah.
things. And so he had absolutely no fun. And he was eating this extreme low calorie diet. And then so we're like, again, what's the point of,
If you
you
can't
live
enjoy
like,
life.
an extra 30 years, but you have no fun. I mean, so you
Right.
want to have some fun. And then, of course, like my students, this video was like a few years old when I showed it. So they went online and they found out he died. He
Of starvation.
essentially starved himself to death.
Yeah.
It's like, really? So
Oh my God.
so you have there's tools and ways and means to work with time and to reverse entropy on the biological level. And then once it comes to social time, you're totally in control. I mean, unless you have a job that you have to show up for at certain times. But
Right.
other than that, like I have a friend who's an acupuncturist, and he just refuses to deal with daylight savings time. So everybody else, the time clocks go from 8 to 9. It's like, okay, I'm still doing my schedule. You're coming at the same time. He just doesn't deal with it. And so you have a lot of control over social time. Again, within limitations.
Right.
Like I like to go to the gym, and the gym is at a certain hour, but I make that choice. I could also, go online and get an exercise class online and do it whenever I wanted. So
Right.
social time is something, um, once you realize that it's a total construction and that it doesn't have to be the dictator in your life, you can start to take control of it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kohn. I
Okay,
really
well, thank
appreciate
you. Thank you for
discussing with
having me.
you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Yeah, it was good to meet you in person. I mean, to see you,
Yeah.
it's nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah.